a hunter claimed to find a skeleton near Briarwood, surrounded by what looked like teenage girls' clothing. Welcome to Scary Stories You Shouldn't Hear. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more. In the spring of 1951, Alvin Booker vanished from the face of the earth. He was 21 years old, a quiet but capable war veteran who had recently returned from serving overseas. Seeking solitude and a fresh start, Alvin retreated to an isolated cabin nestled deep within the forested ridges of Ironwood Hill in northwest Washington. The last contact anyone had with Alvin was in March of that year. He called his family from a payphone in town, calmly giving them detailed directions to his new home. He promised he'd be back by Thanksgiving to share dinner with them. But when November arrived and Alvin failed to appear, his mother grew anxious. She packed up a small overnight bag and drove the long, winding mountain roads to his cabin, hoping for a delay, maybe a broken-down truck. Instead, she arrived to find the cabin empty. The inside was eerily pristine. No signs of struggle, no belongings scattered, but something felt off. Both of Alvin's vehicles were missing. A nearby neighbor, a man named Earl Dennis, casually told her that Alvin had packed up quickly and headed for Alaska, said he wanted a change. Something about that never sat right with her. For a while, the Booker family tried to believe it. Alaska sounded plausible. Alvin was an outdoorsman, the kind who could build shelter from trees and survive with little more than a knife and matches. But the months turned into years, and not a single letter, call, or rumor ever emerged. No employment records, no sightings. It was as if he'd simply walked into the trees and vanished. Alvin's younger brother Martin was 12 when it happened. The loss haunted him. As he grew older, he became the family's unofficial archivist, saving every newspaper clipping, every letter, every piece of hearsay. He and his wife Darlene even attended a missing persons event in Spokane in 2016. There, they submitted Alvin's photos and Martin's DNA in a last-ditch effort to reopen the case. It was one of the few things Martin had left to give. Then the rumors started. Quiet at first, whispered at local diners and in the back of church pews. Alvin, they said, had been having an affair with a married woman, someone from town. Some claimed her husband found out and confronted Alvin at the cabin. One story claimed both she and her husband left him to bleed out, his cries for help echoing into the trees. As the years passed, suspicion even began to surround Earl Dennis, the very neighbor who first told Alvin's mother that he'd left town. His story never changed, which in time seemed less like consistency and more like rehearsal. Darlene began digging herself, speaking with anyone who remembered Ironwood Hill from that era. But the trail had long gone cold. People had died, memories faded, and the forest had swallowed whatever secrets remained. On September 24, 1971, 16-year-old Emily Harper vanished without a trace. She lived in the small coastal town of Bridgeford, Maine, and had plans to attend a fall dance that evening. That afternoon, she asked her father to drop her off on Oak Ridge Avenue, explaining she needed to grab a few things, pantyhose and toothpaste, before heading home to get ready. Later, she visited a friend at a local record shop on Pine Street and promised she'd see her at the dance. Emily was last seen walking away from the store, carrying a brown leather clutch that held her house key, 2 tubes of toothpaste, and a few coins. She never made it home. When dinner time came and went without her return, her parents reported her missing. Days later, witnesses claimed to have seen Emily inside a stolen blue Cadillac with a local misfit named Dean Wallace. Some believed she left with him willingly, but others weren't so sure. A few weeks later, sightings of Dean, Emily, and a second man named Randall Brody surfaced near the remote outskirts of Maple County. One garage attendant in Rivertown recalled them stopping for new tires, noting how Randall always kept a hand on the back of Emily's neck, steering her around like property. Later, on the Cross Hollow Reservation just beyond the border, residents claimed Dean and Emily were seen for several days. They eventually began working at a potato farm in the Willow Ridge area. Emily was terrified, often crying and begging to go home. She confided in a young girl on the farm who said Emily was certain her parents were searching for her. On the night of September 29th, while the field workers gathered around a bonfire, Dean drove off in the stolen Cadillac with Emily. He told others he dropped her at a nearby camp, but investigators later confirmed he had returned her to the reservation, leaving her with Randall. Dean left for Florida after the harvest and never returned to Maine. He died of cancer in the mid-1980s. Randall, who had a violent criminal history, became the prime suspect. Even when offered immunity, he refused to talk. Randall's own relatives admitted Dean had left Emily at their home and that one of their own may have harmed her. But no one would say more. Detectives believe Emily died on the Cross Hollow Reservation sometime before Thanksgiving, but no charges were ever filed. In 1983, a hunter claimed to find a skeleton near Briarwood, surrounded by what looked like teenage girls' clothing. He lost his way while trying to guide investigators back to the site. Emily had been a high school junior, well-liked and never seen as the type to run away. Her father passed away in 2017, but her mother still waits, hoping the truth will one day come home. In the summer of 1948, 21-year-old Grace Ellington vanished shortly after arriving in the college town of Norval, Texas. She had taken a train from her hometown of Havenbrook and arrived that evening, planning to start summer classes at the State Women's College. After transferring from the University of Arkansas, she was excited for a new chapter, aiming to become a lab technician. A cab driver named Edward Red Haskins picked her up at the station around 9:30 p.m. and dropped her off near her dormitory, Eastwood Hall. Grace handed him a trunk ticket and $1, asking him to retrieve it the next day. As she walked toward the building, Edward noticed her stop and greet two young men near a yellow convertible. She seemed to know them, smiling as she approached, so he drove away. Grace never checked into her dorm and was never seen again. Speculation spread quickly. Some ex-boyfriends suggested she might have eloped, but her family dismissed that. Grace had been close to her parents and had no known lovers at the time. Her most recent fiancé, Kenneth Bradshaw, was cleared by police after passing a polygraph and was the first to report her missing. That left Edward Haskins as the remaining suspect. He had a criminal record and a history of violence. Although he claimed to be home by 10 p.m. that night, his wife later admitted he hadn't returned until the early hours. Even though Edward passed 2 polygraphs, suspicion lingered. Decades earlier, Grace's hometown of Havenbrook had been rocked by a string of Lover's Lane killings, believed to be the work of a single phantom killer. Grace had known 3 of the victims personally, prompting theories of a connection, though none were proven. In 1998, police received a disturbing tip. Grace had allegedly been raped and murdered by 2 men who buried her body in a dried-up dam near campus. Both suspects were long deceased and no evidence was found. Despite multiple leads over the years, Grace's disappearance remains unsolved. Her parents passed away without answers, but her cousins continue to hold out hope. If these stories found you tonight, let them find you again. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more. If you dare. Subscribe.